Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world are you watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pristine garden as Brett Hale made his way up the driveway. Physical therapy had ended early, a small mercy after weeks of grueling sessions to rehabilitate his shoulder. The injury from that warehouse fire still nagged at him, but he was healing faster than expected. His footsteps were silent on the manicured lawn as he approached the garden pavilion, hearing voices drift through the warm spring air. "Gerald's taking me to the Cayman Islands next month." Marissa's voice carried clearly through the speakerphone. God, it's so refreshing to be with a real man who knows how to treat a woman. Brett froze, his firefighter's instincts keeping him perfectly still as he listened. "Just be careful with the timing," Julius's voice responded through the speaker. "We need everything in place before you serve him the papers." A cold smile crossed Brett's face as he silently retrieved his phone, opening the recording app. 13 years as a firefighter had taught him to document everything. He moved closer, staying hidden behind the garden trellis. "Your brother is such a pathetic provider," Marissa continued, her voice dripping with contempt. "My new man makes 10 times his salary and has a mansion in the hills. Once I take the house in court, you should come see it." "I'll help you with the lawyer," Julius replied eagerly. "I never liked my brother from childhood. Mom and Dad's precious golden boy, always playing the hero while I had to settle for running a gym." "The PTSD angle is perfect," Marissa said. "All those nights he comes home from the bar with his firefighter buddies will paint him as an unstable drunk. The judge will give me everything. I've been gathering photos for months," Julius added. "Every time he's out with the crew, I make sure to document it. A few strategic edits, and it looks like he's at the bar every night." Brett's jaw tightened, but his hand remained steady on the phone. The pieces were falling into place: the mysterious equipment failure that had nearly killed him last month, the odd calls that stopped when he entered the room, Julius's sudden interest in his work schedule. "Gerald says the house will make a perfect teardown once we get it," Marissa continued. "He's already planning the development. Your brother won't know what hit him." "Just like college," Julius laughed. "Remember that football scholarship he lost after his accident? Some people never learn to watch their back." Brett had heard enough. He saved the recording and moved silently back down the driveway. His mind was already racing through the implications, analyzing the situation like he would a fire scene. The betrayal burned, but he wouldn't let it consume him. He had containment to establish first. The offices of Angela Chin, senior partner at Chin & Associates, offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. As both the fire chief's wife and the department's most trusted legal counsel, she had been Brett's first call. "The estate documents are worse than we thought," Angela said, spreading papers across her desk. "Julius has been systematically selling off shares in your parents' business ventures for months. The transactions are cleverly hidden, but the money trail leads to offshore accounts." Brett studied the documents, his tactical training helping him piece together the pattern. "He's been planning this for years." "There's more," Angela continued, pulling up an email on her screen. "Marissa consulted with Jacobson and Reed last week. They're the most aggressive divorce attorneys in the state. They specialize in cases involving first responders, particularly targeting PTSD and substance abuse angles." "My brother's handiwork," Brett said grimly. "He's always been good at playing the long game." Angela nodded. "I did some digging into your college years. That accident that ended your football career? The brake lines were cut. Campus police buried the report, but I found a copy. Julius's fingerprints were all over the investigation, metaphorically speaking. The revelation triggered a cascade of memories, opportunities that mysteriously fell through, relationships that ended abruptly, always with Julius hovering in the background." "Sarah from college," Brett said quietly. "My fiancée. She didn't just leave, did she?" Angela shook her head. "Julius showed her doctored photos of you with another woman. He convinced her you were playing her for a fool. She married someone else 2 months later. And now he's doing the same with Marissa," Brett said. "But there's something bigger here. The timing of my accident at work, Gerald's property developments, it's all connected." Angela pulled up another file. "Gerald Morris. His company, Phoenix Development, has an interesting pattern of acquiring properties damaged by fire. They buy at rock-bottom prices, then flip them for massive profits. The same properties your team has responded to over the past year. The equipment failure wasn't an accident, Brett said, the pieces clicking into place. Someone tampered with my gear. They needed me home early today. To overhear their conversation? Angela frowned. That seems counterproductive. No, Brett's eyes narrowed. To get me out of the way during a crucial operation. What major calls came in while I was at therapy? Angela checked the dispatch log. Warehouse fire on Front Street. Total loss, property already under contract to Phoenix Development. The fire station's ready room was quiet as Brett laid out his findings to Stephen Martinez, his partner of 8 years. The wall-mounted clock ticked past midnight, but neither man noticed the time. The same pattern repeats, Stephen said, reviewing the incident reports. Every major structure fire in the past year your team gets diverted or delayed. Equipment failures force early withdrawal, and Gerald's company swoops in to buy the ruins. They're using inside information, Brett confirmed. Marissa has access to my department laptop. She's been feeding Gerald our response plans, staging areas, everything they need to maximize the damage. Stephen pulled up more files on his tablet. That's not all. Your brother's gym? It's a front. The membership numbers don't match the revenue. They're laundering money through it, probably for Gerald's operation. Julius introduced me to Marissa 3 years ago, Brett said. Said she was a client at his gym. Now I know why. We found these in the locker room. Stephen handed over a stack of photographs. Hidden cameras catching conversations, documents being copied. Your brother and Marissa have been systematically gathering intel on department operations. The station's internal affairs liaison, Detective Karen Wong, joined them quietly. We've been tracking similar patterns across 3 districts. Equipment failures, delayed responses, strategic property acquisitions. Your case broke it open, Brett. We're building a task force. They're getting bolder, Brett observed. The conversation I overheard today, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. Pride before the fall, Karen said. We need to let them think their plan is working. Play into their hands while we gather evidence. Brett nodded slowly, his tactical mind already formulating countermoves. They want to paint me as unstable? Fine. I'll give them the performance of a lifetime. But first, we need to secure the real evidence. I've got a contact at the FBI, Karen offered. Agent who specializes in real estate fraud and arson conspiracy. This is right up their alley. Set it up, Brett said, standing to leave. And Karen? Make sure internal affairs keeps this quiet. As far as anyone knows, I'm just a burned-out firefighter losing his grip. He walked out into the cool night air, feeling the weight of his wedding ring. Tomorrow he would play the part they expected, the dedicated husband blindsided by betrayal. But tonight, he would begin laying the groundwork for their destruction. They thought he would break. Instead, he would dismantle their entire operation, piece by careful piece. The city lights spread out before him, a tapestry of potential fires waiting to happen. But the real inferno would be the one he orchestrated, a controlled burn to expose every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal. Julius had forgotten the most important lesson their father taught them. Fire doesn't just destroy. In the right hands, it cleanses. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with a text from Marissa. Working late at the office, honey? Don't wait up. Brett smiled grimly as he deleted the message. Let them think they had him fooled. The time for confrontation would come, but not yet. First, he had evidence to gather, allies to recruit, and a trap to set. They wanted to play with fire? He would show them how a true professional handled the flames. FBI agent Glenda Buckley's office radiated efficiency, much like the agent herself. She studied the evidence spread across her desk, her sharp eyes catching details others might miss. The surveillance photos of Gerald Morris's properties formed a damning pattern. Your brother's financial trails are sloppy, she told Brett, tapping a stack of bank statements. He got overconfident. The money from your parents' charity foundation left breadcrumbs a rookie could follow. Julius always thought he was the smarter brother, Brett replied, his voice carrying no trace of the turmoil beneath. Show me what you found. Glinda pulled up a complex financial diagram on her screen. The foundation money went through his gym, then split into multiple offshore accounts. Some funded Marissa's affair, luxury hotels, jewelry, private flights. The rest went to Gerald's shell companies. Angela Chan joined them, adding her own files to the growing collection of evidence. I've documented every transaction Julius made with the family assets. He didn't just sell shares, he systematically stripped your parents' legacy. The equipment tampering? Brett asked. Connected to your brother's gym? Glinda confirmed. One of his employees, Mike Foster, used to work maintenance for the fire department. He's been making regular cash deposits far above his salary. Brett's expression hardened. The warehouse fire that injured me? Foster was seen near the station that morning, Angela said. Security cameras caught him in the equipment room. He's gotten sloppy too. They all have, Glinda added. Gerald and Marissa were photographed touring potential development sites, all properties that mysteriously caught fire in the past year. A text lit up Brett's phone. Dinner at 8? Need to discuss your drinking. Perfect timing, Brett said, showing them the message. They want to see signs of PTSD? Let's give them a show. That evening, at the upscale restaurant Marissa had chosen, Brett played his role perfectly. He arrived slightly disheveled, letting his hands shake just enough to spill his water glass. Honey, maybe you should skip the wine, Marissa suggested. Her concern as fake as her wedding vows. Don't tell me what to do, Brett snapped, loud enough for nearby tables to notice. He saw phones discreetly recording exactly as planned. The department therapist said, "The department doesn't understand what we see." His voice cracked with manufactured emotion. The fires, the bodies, the constant pressure. Marissa's smile held triumph rather than sympathy. As she reached for her phone to document his breakdown, Brett caught the flash of a new diamond bracelet paid for with his parents' stolen money. Later that night, in the secure conference room at FBI headquarters, Glinda played back surveillance footage of Gerald Morris. He's planning a luxury development, she explained, using all the properties damaged in suspicious fires. The profit projections are in the millions. And Julius? Brett asked. Your brother's insurance fraud scheme goes deeper than we thought. He's been falsifying gym membership records to launder money for years. Angela entered with fresh documents. I found something else. Remember that maintenance worker, Foster? His sister works at the law firm Marissa consulted. They're building their PTSD case using insider information about firefighter divorce precedents. Brett absorbed each piece of information, fitting them into his larger strategy. They think they're watching me break. Time to let them think they're winning. The leaked information about Brett's substantial injury settlement spread through the department like wildfire. He watched Marissa's poorly concealed excitement when she heard the number. 7 figures, he overheard her telling Julius on the phone. The idiot has no idea I can claim half. Keep him drinking, Julius replied, unaware of the FBI's wiretap. The more unstable he looks, the better our case. Brett's performance continued. He accidentally left bank statements showing large transfers visible on his desk. Marissa took photos the moment he left the room, exactly as predicted. Gerald Morris's office became the center of FBI surveillance. Agent Buckley's team documented every meeting, every phone call. The pressure's working, she told Brett during their secure meetings. Morris is pushing Marissa hard for more department information. He needs to know about upcoming inspections at his properties. Give them something useful, Brett suggested. Let's see how they use it. The fire department's press release about updating response protocols sent Gerald's organization into overdrive. Hidden cameras caught his late-night meeting with Julius. Your brother's department is changing everything, Gerald ranted, his polished exterior cracking. We need those new protocols. Marissa's working on it, Julius assured him. She says he's getting careless with his laptop. Drinking more. He better be. The development announcement goes public next month. Everything needs to be perfect. Meanwhile, Brett systematically transferred assets to protected accounts, making it look like panic rather than strategy. Each move was calculated to draw his opponents deeper into their own trap. They're getting sloppy, Angela reported. Julius tried accessing your medical records through a contact at the hospital. We caught it all on camera. And the childhood resentment? Brett asked. Angela played an audio recording from Julius's recent gym visit. "I've waited years to take him down," Julius told a colleague. "The perfect brother, the family hero." Dad's last words were about how proud he was of Brett. "He never even mentioned me." The family intervention was a masterpiece of manipulation, just not in the way Marissa and Julius intended. They gathered in Brett's living room, concern radiating from their false faces. "We're worried about you, brother," Julius said, Aunt Sally nodding beside him. "The drinking, the mood swings. Remember that fight at the Johnson wedding?" Aunt Sally added on cue. "You almost hurt that waiter." Brett let his hands shake, eyes darting around the room. "That wasn't. I was just—" "You grabbed his arm," Julius pressed. "Just like you grabbed Marissa's that night." "I never touched her." Brett stood suddenly, sending his coffee cup crashing to the floor. Perfect timing, he saw Marissa hit record on her phone. "See his violent tendencies?" Julius whispered to Aunt Sally, loud enough for the recording. "Just like when we were kids." The family meeting devolved into exactly the shouting match they wanted. Every accusation, every dramatic moment captured for their court case. Later that week, Marissa's legal bombshell landed. Emergency custody filing for children they'd never had. "She claims you've been hiding pregnancy tests," Angela reported, barely containing her disgust. "Says you've been sabotaging her attempts to start a family." "Let me guess, Julius provided witnesses?" "3 gym employees swear they heard you ranting about never wanting kids. They're claiming you disposed of fertility medications." Brett allowed himself a small smile. "They're getting desperate." "Very," Glenda agreed, joining them with fresh surveillance photos. "Gerald's development announcement is scheduled for the department awards ceremony next month. He's pushing everyone too hard." "My medical records?" Julius tried accessing them again last night. "We caught his contact at the hospital accepting a bribe. It's all on video." The pressure was building exactly as planned. Each desperate move by his opponents added another layer to the evidence. Soon they would reach the breaking point. The development project? "Morris is announcing luxury condos," Glenda confirmed, "built on the ashes of 12 suspicious fires. He's even invited the mayor." "Perfect timing," Brett said. "They think they're about to triumph in front of the whole city. Time to let them hang themselves with their own rope." The pieces were in place. His opponents, drunk on apparent success, were charging straight toward their own destruction. As Brett reviewed the mountain of evidence they'd gathered, he allowed himself to appreciate the irony. They tried to paint him as unstable, not realizing they were the ones losing control. His phone buzzed another text from Marissa. "Family therapy tomorrow? The counselor really thinks it could help with your issues." Brett smiled at the transparent manipulation. Let them think their plan was working. The real therapy session would come soon enough in front of a judge, with the whole city watching their empire crumble. Agent Buckley's final report lay on his desk, ready for the coming storm. Every betrayal, every lie, every crime documented in meticulous detail. They wanted to destroy him. Instead, they'd handed him everything he needed to destroy them. The awards ceremony was 2 weeks away. Time to prepare for the final act. The fire department's annual awards ceremony transformed the City Hall's grand ballroom into a sea of dress uniforms and polished brass. Television cameras lined the back wall. Brett's unstable behavior had drawn media attention, exactly as planned. Fire Chief Michael Chen stood at the podium, his voice carrying authority across the packed room. "Today, we honor the brave men and women who risk everything to protect our city." The dramatic entrance Marissa had planned was right on schedule. She burst through the main doors, Julius and Gerald flanking her like attack dogs. "You can't let him accept any awards." Marissa's voice cracked with manufactured hysteria. "He's dangerous." Phones appeared throughout the crowd, recording what they thought would be another public meltdown. Instead, FBI agent Glenda Buckley stepped forward from her position near the stage. "Gerald Morris," her voice cut through the chaos. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, arson, and fraud." The color drained from Gerald's face as federal agents emerged from every exit. Across town, simultaneous raids hit his offices and Julius's gym. The trap had sprung perfectly. "This is outrageous." Gerald's polished facade cracked. "Do you know who I am?" A property developer who orchestrated fires to buy buildings cheap. Chief Chen answered, stepping down from the podium. We know exactly who you are. Marissa's triumphant expression melted into confusion as Angela Chan approached with a thick folder. Marissa Hale, we have evidence of your involvement in stealing and distributing confidential fire department information. You can't prove anything, Julius snarled, reaching for his phone. Actually, Brett finally spoke, his voice steady. We can prove everything. The large screen behind the podium flickered to life, displaying financial records, surveillance photos, and recorded conversations. The audience watched in stunned silence as the conspiracy unfolded. The equipment tampering that injured 3 firefighters? Agent Buckley pointed to Julius. Your employee confessed this morning. The money trail leads straight to your gym's accounts. Gerald lunged for the exit, but found his path blocked by more agents. This is a setup. Marissa, tell them. But Marissa stood frozen as her own voice played through the speakers. Once I take everything in the divorce, we'll demolish his precious house. Your brother won't know what hit him. Speaking of hits, Brett added, remember my college football career, Julius? The break lines didn't cut themselves. Julius's face contorted with decades of bitterness. You deserved it. Perfect brother, golden boy, dad's favorite. That's enough. Agent Buckley cut him off as agents moved in with handcuffs. Gerald Morris, Julius Hale, Marissa Hale, you're all under arrest. The following week's headline dominated newsstands. Property developer's empire built on ashes. Arson conspiracy exposed. In the district attorney's office, Marissa's carefully crafted facade crumbled under questioning. I had no idea about the fires, she insisted, mascara streaking her face. Gerald was just mentoring me in real estate. Mentoring? The DA slid photos across the table, Marissa copying fire department documents, her offshore account statements, recorded meetings with Gerald's conspirators. You knew exactly what you were doing. The Real Estate Commission is suspending your license pending investigation, Agent Buckley added. We have evidence of you facilitating property fraud schemes across 3 states. Across town, the Family Foundation's board members convened an emergency meeting. Angela presented her findings to the stunned directors. Julius diverted over $2 million, she explained, displaying bank records. The money funded both Gerald's property acquisitions and Marissa's luxury lifestyle. The foundation's rehabilitation programs. Board Chairman Harrison shook his head in disgust. While he was stealing from injured firefighters, his own brother almost died from tampered equipment. In the federal courthouse, Julius faced the consequences of his lifelong vendetta. The prosecutor's evidence was overwhelming. You orchestrated your brother's college accident, the prosecutor stated, then spent decades sabotaging his relationships, stealing his inheritance, and finally conspiring to destroy his career. He had everything handed to him. Julius exploded, his mask finally falling completely. The scholarships, dad's praise, mom's attention. So you embezzled from your parents' charity? The prosecutor's voice dripped contempt. Helped target your brother's fire station? People could have died. Julius's response chilled the courtroom. He deserved to lose everything. The final hearing drew media from across the country. Gerald's property empire, built on orchestrated disasters, crumbled under federal scrutiny. 12 properties acquired through arson, the federal prosecutor announced. Firefighters deliberately endangered, all to build luxury condos. Gerald, his expensive suit now replaced by prison orange, watched his legacy burn. Mr. Morris faces multiple life sentences, the judge declared. The court finds him guilty of conspiracy, arson, fraud, and attempted manslaughter. Julius received his sentence next. The judge's words carried decades of justice. The systematic targeting of your own brother, theft from your family's charity, and involvement in schemes that endangered public servants 40 years without possibility of parole. Marissa's divorce case imploded spectacularly. Her attorney withdrew after evidence of perjury emerged. The custody filing for non-existent children, the divorce court judge stated, shows profound contempt for this court. The attempted character assassination of Mr. Hale through false PTSD claims is particularly egregious. Aunt Sally approached the stand, her testimony completing Julius's downfall. "He manipulated me for years," she admitted. "Made me believe terrible things about Brett. I was a fool to help them." The fire department's commendation ceremony, properly held this time, saw Brett receiving full honors. Battalion Chief Hale's investigation exposed corruption that endangered not just our department, but our entire city, Chief Chin announced. His courage and dedication represent the highest traditions of service. Standing at the podium, surrounded by colleagues and loyal family members who had stood by him, Brett delivered a brief but powerful speech. "Fire shows us what people are made of," he said. "Some reveal their true nature through ash and flame. Others rise from the heat stronger than before. Today, we honor those who chose to serve rather than destroy." The restored family estate and charitable foundation began a new chapter. Brett's leadership turned tragedy into opportunity, establishing programs to detect equipment tampering and protect firefighters nationwide. Justice had been served, not through emotional outbursts or hasty revenge, but through methodical, relentless pursuit of truth. In the end, the very people who tried to paint Brett as unstable had destroyed themselves through their own unstable hatred and greed. The final gavel fell with the weight of complete victory. Gerald's empire revealed as ash, Julius's lifelong manipulation exposed, Marissa's betrayal returning to destroy her, perfect justice served through perfect patience. Brett stood outside the courthouse, his battalion chief insignia catching the sun. The city skyline stretched before him, its buildings now protected by new safety protocols born from his ordeal. He had lost a wife and brother, but gained something far more valuable: the truth and the power to protect others from similar betrayals. The fire that was meant to destroy him had instead forged him into something stronger. As he headed to lead his first arson investigation unit meeting, Brett allowed himself a small smile. Some fires cleanse, some fires strengthen, and some fires reveal the truth that lies hidden in human hearts. Epilogue, 6 months later and beyond. The morning sun glinted off the polished nameplate. Battalion Chief Brett Hale, Special Arson Investigation Unit. The office overlooked the same city streets where the conspiracy had unfolded, but everything else had changed. Brett reviewed the latest report from the prison system. Gerald Morris, once the proud real estate mogul, now wore inmate number 247856 at a maximum security federal penitentiary. His empire of ashes had crumbled completely, with investigators still uncovering new layers of fraud and corruption. Another confession came in, Agent Glenda Buckley said, entering with a fresh file. 3 more properties from 2018. Gerald's former associates are falling over themselves to cut deals. "How's he handling Supermax?" Brett asked, though his tone suggested mere professional curiosity rather than concern. "Poorly," Glenda smiled. "His first appeal was rejected last week. The evidence was too overwhelming. He spends his days in a 6x8 cell, a far cry from his mansion. The other inmates particularly enjoy having a rich boy to torment." The property developer who once boasted about his millions now earned 38 cents per hour doing laundry. His luxury suits replaced by prison orange, his gourmet meals reduced to prison slop. Every development project had been seized, his assets frozen, and his reputation destroyed. Julius's fate proved equally satisfying. His bitter resentment had earned him 4 decades in federal prison, his attempts to destroy his brother resulting in his own destruction. He tried claiming mental instability, Angela reported during their weekly meeting. The judge wasn't impressed, especially after the recording of him bragging about causing your college accident. The former gym owner now spent his days in solitary confinement, his inability to control his rage making him a problem prisoner. The careful manipulator, the jealous brother, reduced to screaming at walls in a concrete box. "The family foundation is thriving," Angela continued. "We've established new programs for equipment safety testing. 3 departments have already adopted our protocols." Brett nodded, examining photos of the foundation's latest graduation ceremony. 20 firefighters trained in equipment tampering detection, their skills already saving lives. Marissa's downfall proved particularly spectacular. Her guilty plea to conspiracy charges came only after every attempt at manipulation failed. 5 to 7 years, Agent Buckley confirmed. The prosecutor was pushing for more, but her eventual cooperation helped identify other conspirators. The former real estate agent now shared a cell in a women's correctional facility, her designer clothes exchanged for prison uniforms, her carefully maintained appearance deteriorating under harsh fluorescent lights. Her letters attempting to justify her actions when unopened. Returned marked refused. The woman who had sneered at Brett's pathetic salary now earned pennies making license plates, her dreams of luxury replaced by the harsh reality of concrete and steel. The fire station's training room buzzed with activity. Brett's new arson investigation unit had become a model for departments nationwide. Equipment tampering attempts down 60%, Stephen reported proudly. The new protocols are working. No serious injuries in 8 months. The Firefighter Protection Initiative, born from Brett's ordeal, had grown into a comprehensive national program. The foundation supporting injured firefighters provided both prevention and support, turning tragedy into triumph. Chief Chin approached with a fresh stack of reports. The mayor wants to expand the program statewide. Your testimony at the Public Safety Committee made quite an impression. Aunt Sally's redemption proved genuine. Her testimony against Julius had helped secure his conviction, and her subsequent work with the foundation showed true remorse. I was blind, she admitted during a family gathering. Julius played on my own insecurities, made me see things that weren't there. The foundation work? It helps me make amends. The family's healing extended beyond immediate members. Cousins, uncles, and distant relatives who had been pulled into Julius's web of lies now rallied around Brett's leadership. The department's annual review showcased the transformation. Brett's unit had become a flagship program, with departments across the country sending officers for training. 17 attempts at equipment tampering prevented, he reported to the assembled brass. 32 arson conspiracies uncovered. Over $40 million in property fraud prevented. The numbers told only part of the story. The real victory lay in the lives saved, the families protected, the corruption exposed and eliminated. 10 years later, a decade after the conspiracy's exposure, the changes proved permanent. Gerald Morris, still in Supermax, had aged decades in prison. His appeals exhausted, his fortune gone. He faced the reality of dying behind bars. Julius, broken by isolation and regret, had stopped sending his rambling letters of blame. His hatred had consumed him, leaving nothing but an empty shell in a prison cell. Marissa, released after 6 years, but stripped of all licenses and credentials, had fled to a small town in another state. Her attempts at reinvention failed, her past following her like a shadow. The last report showed her working as a grocery store clerk, living in a tiny apartment, the kind of life she had once mocked. Brett's office wall displayed the changes their ordeal had sparked. Certification programs for equipment safety, mandatory tampering detection protocols, enhanced arson investigation procedures. The Foundation's 10th anniversary, Angela reminded him, bringing in the latest financial report. Over 1,000 firefighters trained, 20 departments using our protocols, 0 deaths from equipment tampering since implementation. The betrayal meant to destroy him had instead created a legacy of protection. The fire that should have consumed him had forged something unbreakable. Standing at his office window, Brett watched new recruits training in the yard. They would never know the personal cost behind the protocols that protected them, the betrayal that had created their safety net. His phone buzzed. Another desperate letter from Marissa returned unread. After a decade, she still tried to explain, to justify, to manipulate. Her words, like her schemes, fell into silence. Chief. Stephen appeared at the door. We've got a new case. Possible tampering at Station 12. Brett nodded, already reaching for his jacket. The past had taught its lessons, but the future demanded vigilance. Some fires destroyed, but others forged strength from ashes. He glanced one last time at the skyline where Gerald's empire had once stood. Now it housed a firefighter training center, turning scandal into salvation. The perfect revenge wasn't destruction, but transformation. The betrayers had sought to destroy him through fire. Instead, they had tempered him into something stronger, creating protections that would outlast their betrayal. Justice, Brett had learned, was patient. It didn't need to announce itself or seek attention. Like a slow-burning flame, it simply did its work, consuming corruption and leaving truth in its wake. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new attempts at corruption. But the protocols were in place, the watchmen trained, the defenses strengthened by the lessons of betrayal. The story that began with a broken trust had forged an unbreakable legacy. In the end, that was the greatest victory, not the punishment of the guilty, but the protection of the innocent. Brett picked up his badge, heading out to face another day. Behind him, the morning sun caught the Foundation's motto, etched in his office wall: from betrayal, protection; from ashes, strength. The fire meant to destroy him had instead lit a beacon of safety for others. And that, more than any revenge, was the perfect justice.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.